I'm actually deceptive. I'm much more of a troublemaker than I look. I'm much more diplomatic, and it catches lots of elected officials off guard because I'll take them down politely. I'll think, what just happened? So I was asked to talk about the environmental record of Bush, and of course it's just horrible. And there were like 30 pages, and that was just kind of like kind of a brief outline. So what I mainly want to do is just, I don't know if Gary's going to be able to pull it up. I'll let you know if you ever want to look it up and talk to someone about Bush's record. NRDC, the Natural Resources Defense Council, has a great list of all the awful things that he did for and to the environment. And they have a slideshow, it's a timeline, so whether or not it's going to be pulled up today, I don't know. But you can go to nrdc.org/Bush-record, and it just has more than you probably can stomach for very long. But those of you who worked trying to battle what was going on know that it was just one thing after another. I want to tell you a little bit how it started. Some of you, how many of you in this room are from Texas? Well, that's a whole lot of us. So you know how he was as governor and how he fought environmental regulation quite effectively, and how you may not know that Exxon actually wrote some of his legislation to try to make sure that oil and gas refineries didn't have to comply with any possible clean air improvements in regulation. We found that out through open records, and about the only way we could find out lots of things about Bush. So anyway, he fought electric deregulation that would have required more stricter regulations on power plants. But when he and those who also were advocating for the polluters were not able to stop those amendments, and I know lots of you in this room fought really hard to make sure we got those amendments on the deregulation bill. And a point I want to make is on legislation, anytime you see something that's moving, whether you like it or not, like we knew electricity deregulation, which we were opposed to, it was going to pass, so we got every good amendment. We fought to the end to get good amendments on it. And because of that, we did get renewables as part of electricity in the state of Texas, renewable energy portfolio, against Bush as well. He couldn't stop it. And we also got some cleanup of our coal-fired power plants. Well, after that all passed, and he was running for president the first time, he took credit for it. He said, look what I've done. You know, I'm great on clean air. You may remember he even ran ads. It was McCain and Bush. Who is better on clean air? You know, they were the big champions. Well, we knew it was bogus, but lots of people didn't. And so shortly after he was elected, after he became president illegally. Shortly after that, his tune radically changed. And it was very well known that the coal industry was coming down hard on him, not to do what he said he was going to do in his campaign. He said he was going to clean up the coal-fired power plants. Well, whether or not he was surprised about the backlash or the whole thing was a ruse, in the first place, he really cared about clean air. Whatever, he totally changed course. And the whole rest of his administration was one of letting polluters do whatever they wanted to, rolling back laws, using secrecy to get what they wanted, deception. There was a whole lot of not following the science, even in his own administration, redacting things, so that you couldn't see what they actually had said, getting rid of people, like even the EPA administrator, Christine Todd Quitman, who, wasn't a radical at all, but I just got to read you something she said. It was just, I think it's pretty great, because it's more colorful than she spoke on when she was actually in the administration. This was later. She was the head of the EPA during the time that Bush was saying we couldn't join the Kyoto Protocol. And she said that Christine Todd Whitman said that this exit of Kyoto was the equivalent to flipping the bird, frankly, to the rest of the world. I thought, right on. That sums it up.
Yeah. Wow.
That was part of it, yes. It has
happened under Bush.
No, it
happened under Clinton and Gore.
Well, it continued. I mean, we could have joined it. I know it started earlier with that. You're right. It did.
Actually, at 95 to 0, in a pre-vote on Kyoto, U.S. Senate voted against.
Yes, I understand that. I know it happened earlier, but it continued.
And that included a lot of people we admired, like Dennis Kucinich, who wasn't in the Senate.
Absolutely. I mean, you're right on that. But it continued. I mean, there was still.
Like on war and peace issues have been very bad on the environment. For example, Dennis Kucinich is from Ohio. Ohio has a lot of coal. He's pro-coal.
I know. But there was an effort to join the Kyoto Protocol, and that did happen during the Bush administration. I mean, just because it started earlier didn't mean it didn't continue. And I can get you information on this later, but rather than debate that right now, what I want to look at is the big picture. How did we get in this mess with the environment? How is it continuing? Why is it continuing? I mean, what is making us all sick? And what is the cause of all this? And of course, it's corporate influence. I mean, that is it. I helped organize a bunch of conferences with environmental organizations around the world. And we were trying to figure out what can we do about all of our problems. And it was, the root of it was corporate control. What can we do about that? So that's what we need to look at. And during the Clinton administration, there was the so-called war on the environment. Well, actually, it came from what Gingrich was calling the Contract with America, but it was really, by the environmentalists, it was called the war on the environment. But it's actually true to say, when they say they weren't having a war on the environment, it's true. It's just collateral damage. What it really is war for complete corporate control. The environment, justice, truth, everything else is collateral damage and seeking to get complete corporate control. And so if we're going to heal the planet, we have got to do something about that. And I think Gary's going to talk a little bit more about what we need to do. There's a slideshow. I was thinking if we had time, we don't. Sometime we might want to just play the slideshow, go through it, and just have some, I was thinking, for some reason, even though it more applies to war, I just kept thinking the eve of destruction. Play some music and just go through it, if you can stand it or not. But we need to work on cutting back on the corporate control of everything, including what people see as reality. I know when I've been working on issues, I talk to so many people who are just so shocked to hear that what I'm saying is so at odds to what they've heard, whether it's about the Keystone Pipeline or just about any other issue. They really think there's a battle between jobs and the environment, when we know that's not the case at all.
All right.
I view Molly as one of my favorite avenging angels for justice. Again, I'm Gary Stuard, and I'm going to follow this, or I've been told I will be assassinated. But I don't keep, well, maybe not assassinated, but somebody will get the quote exactly what. Basically, and it's hard to try to encapsulate everything because doesn't it seem like we're in a war?
We are.
Yes, we are in a war. And it is a war that's been declared on us. It's been declared on you, your children. It was a war that was declared on your parents. And most of us, most American citizens don't realize that they are in a war, and the war is being waged on them. And it's our job, it's one of our main jobs, is to help people see that reality. Okay? As I said before, or has been mentioned, I'm active not only with Down Winners at Risk, which is a cleaner advocacy group. We've been around for 20 years in this area, working on coal burning power plants, Midlothian cement kilns, the past 3 years on fracking, but also involved with Dallas Council of Move On and Occupy Dallas. And the issue that Molly raised, which is really the heart of it, is the corruption of our government from local, state, national, international, the corruption of government, period, by corporate powers. Be they fossil fuel, be they Wall Street, be they the banks, etc. Our government, our pharmaceuticals, our governments are not ours. And that has become clear to me, being an environmental activist in the past 8 years. The agencies that are supposed to be there for us are not there for us. How many of you are Texans here? Okay.
I live here, I don't use that term.
I do use it because it shames me, it compels me to act that my state is such an abomination on so many levels. But I share the same thing. I pretend that I'm really from Sweden. But don't ask me to speak Swedish. But kind of, I want to go back a little bit. The reason why we're fighting or showing the truth with regard to the Bush Library is the environmental legacy. And I want to go into some specifics about those issues that we are having to face. Now, and it took me a while to convince Down Winners at Risk to jump in on participating in this, because some people say, well, Bush, that's old history. And when somebody's been raped and beaten and stabbed and shot, it may have happened 20 years ago, but do you think that person doesn't have the effects, the lasting effects of that? And we should see ourselves that has happened to us. We have been assaulted repeatedly over and over again. And the consequences will be with us for many, 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 many years. One thing is the fact that it's not just the library that's opening, it is also a policy center. That will be a think tank, if you can use the term think, for George W. Bush. But they will be cranking out policies. And at this stage of the game, they do have some independence from SMU. And to call it a Center for Higher Education is a lie, because really it's a propaganda machine. And they won't have responsibility to academic standards. Okay? And they will be pumping out policies, recommendations, which will continue with what they have done that the timeline has shown. So one of the biggest issues that we have inherited is, of course, the issue of climate change. We lost 8 years under the Bush administration. And the conscious suppression of scientific evidence, okay, of climate change. We all know the details about that. And that policy center will continue to pump out the lies. Okay? Now, that is the crisis that we're facing, and it has manifested into particular fights. I'm sure there are others. One is the fact of fracking. How many from outside of Texas know about fracking or have to deal with it? Okay. Some things to really clear up real quick. CO2 is really bad. What's worse is methane. And fracking really outdoes anyone else, any other process in the emission of methane gas. We need to realize that. It's bad enough on air quality, the emission of benzenes. I don't know how many of y'all outside of Texas are familiar, but we're in the middle of a war. We've been fighting in Dallas for the past 3 years of preventing unregulated fracking happening within our city limits. We saw what happened next to us in Tarrant County and other counties in the state of Texas, where people can turn on their faucet, light a match, and the water explodes. People have been exposed to benzenes and were lied to by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, who is supposed to protect us, but turn a blind eye and actually give out disinformation of the exposure to benzenes. That is a fight that we're dealing with. Let me know how much time. Right, citizens. Yeah. And of course, tar sands. And all of you are familiar with tar sands. We're finding that here in Texas as well. We have 3 tar sands threats. Keystone, Seaway, which will be coming right east of us, ready to contaminate our water. And then, of course, we've all heard about Mayland. What's the one in Arkansas? No, Pegasus. Pegasus. That also goes in East Texas. And so how do we respond to this? Because we are in war. Well, it's time for us to think out of the box. And if we play by their rules, we will lose. Because the game is stacked against us. It is for them to win. One thing to keep in, well, first is fighting for the overturn of Citizens United. Look, there is a movement, Move to Amend in Texas. Find out if you're outside of Texas, go back home and look at, is there a Move to Amend organizations within your state? Connect with them. Find out when your legislative session is going to be coming up and work on getting that passed. You can do it on the local level, your city. You can also do it on the state level. Get involved. We've got to get money out of politics. Second, direct action. It's time to stop being nice. Okay? I mean, I will always be the polite kid because I was brought up to be that way, and there is power in that. But we have to let go of thinking we have to be nice all the time or play by their rules. Just look at the fact of what has happened in Texas and other places concerning the tar sands. Do you think that we have gotten this far because people just writing letters to the editors or to their reps or their senators or the president? No. It's by committing civil disobedience, being trained how to do it, and there are places where people can get trained to do it and do it effectively. Check with the Rising Tide Organization of North America. Find out there's a tar sands blockade. Check with 350.org. 50,000 people have agreed to commit civil disobedience, signing up through 350.org. 1 million people have sent in their comments concerning tar sands, which the deadline was 12 o'clock midnight this morning. But the thing is, look at which organizations are focusing on the issue of corruption of government by money, big business, and corporations. Okay? You can do it through Move On. We're trying to do that by participating in Move to Amend. The Texas legislative session is meeting now. God help us, or Rooke help us, or Rooke, anyone help us. We're going to be having letter writing parties and pizza parties to get people to write letters to their senators and reps, because handwritten letters are very powerful. But find ways to begin to take the dialogue out of their control, take it to the streets. I have some information here on providing training. If you're with a group, we need to access good training on how to organize. Just recently, Ricky Ott came to Dallas and showed us, did a training on how to organize, also make it very clear that the Constitution is really not for civil liberties. We have to rely on the Bill of Rights, and we have to act on that. We have to train ourselves and make that training available to people out there. So thank you for being here, and let's hit the streets.
All right.
And those of you who live in Texas, if you want to give us your email addresses, we can let you know what's going on in the state legislature, bills that you need to follow, things that will actually take away local municipalities' control even over their environmental laws, including fracking. And we need to abolish corporate personhood. Just had to get that one in there.
For those who are in Texas, I do have a list of bills that are currently up for consideration, good, bad, and the ugly. Take one and share it.
Rooke.